What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got a couple more cards to talk about from OP-13. Couple of cards we haven't talked about yet, which have been revealed, one of which just literally moments ago, that we need to have a little bit of a look at. What is interesting, though, these are both red cards, and you know that Luffy leader I showed you the other day, the one that I said looked really good? It looks better. Like, genuinely looks even better than it was before. Let's start off with this new one, which has just been revealed. It is Curly Dadan. We're early stages of Luffy in this particular video. Now, Curly Dadan here, we got one cost 2,000 power, counter plus 1,000. And if you have any mountain bandits in play, other than this card, it gains double attack. Now, of course, when you got double attack, you really need to be doing at least 5,000 damage. Wow, 5,000 power, you know what I mean? 5,000 power means you can attack into a leader, and you have a chance of it getting through. That's the point here. Make sure your opponent has got no blockers on board, try and make sure they don't have enough counter, and then you swing in a way which is going to make your opponent not be able to get rid of it, and then you've got double attack, although like I've told you many times, the phrase double attack is kind of silly. It's double damage, not double attack. And look, they're revealing a red card. We've seen very few cards from OP-13. We've seen like the Luffy leader and a couple of other red cards, so I'm like, oh, this is for a Luffy deck. It isn't for a Luffy deck. I'm not saying it can't go into a Luffy deck, but I'm saying that Luffy helps you to build power on your leader or Straw Hat characters when your opponent attacks. And what we really need to do with Curly Dadan here is add power to Curly Dadan when Curly Dadan attacks. That is not what's happening here. Sorry about that. The thing is, it's still a phenomenal aggro card. It's a red aggro card. So now my question is, all right then, what do we got here? How are we trying to make sure that this can work? It's not for the new Luffy, because it's not a Straw Hat, and it wants the extra power now, not when your opponent's attacking. So what can we do to make this better? Well, look, anytime I see a red potential aggro card, I'm like, oh, Roanoa Zoro, cool. Like, I know it's an OP-01 leader. I know it was that right at the beginning. Don't care. Because the reality is, Zoro is red, this is red, Zoro adds power, this needs more power, and when I'm thinking about an aggro red deck, I'm thinking about Zoro, and frankly, Zoro just won a tournament the other day in Japan, a big one. Zoro is still absolutely viable. Make no mistake about it, Zoro works with this nicely. Or even Sanji from Premium Booster 01. What I love about Sanji here is activate main once per turn, up to one of your characters without an on-play effect with a cost of 8 or less gains rush during this turn. Well, Curly Dadan doesn't have an on-play effect, and has a cost of 8 or less. So yes, Curly Dadan can absolutely be given rush by this Sanji, and that means that you could potentially drop this with double attack and be attacking right now. Again, if you have the relevant boosts and you're all rolling. I'm just saying that sounds pretty gosh darn good to me. Because let's not forget, we have ways to boost up low power characters. Like Makino. And Makino's the obvious one here, let's be clear. Also, the other card we're going to talk about today, the new one, is Makino. We'll get there in a minute. But OP-02 Makino, activate main, rest this character. One of your red characters for cost of 1 gains 3,000 power during this turn. Curly Dadan has a cost of 1. And this is the thing, right? I feel like I'm back just talking about an OP-01 Zoro deck at this point. I'm talking about red aggro. But I'm also telling you that this is awesome. Now, it makes me also a little bit sad. It's not going to be that long until the rotation hits. And the rotation feels like it's going to destroy this card. And we've barely even started. Makino's OP-02, Zoro's OP-01. By the way, let's not forget we've got the Curly Dadan from OP-02, which searches out a red character with a cost of 1. Which, of course, will fit here very nicely as well. So look. We got ways to boost it up. We got ways to search it out. We can use Sanji to attack with it with Rush, and then you got Rush and double attack, and I'm sorry, but Rush and double attack is a fairly redonkulous combo. I'm just saying there's a chance here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you, there's a chance. Honestly, as someone who just loves playing aggro decks, I see something like this new curly Dadan, and I'm just like, yeah, cool. That sounds absolutely wonderful. You need ways to build it up, and that's pretty important. And you need to have another Mountain Bandit in play. Remember, it only gains double attack while you've got a Mountain Bandit in play. But if you can build it up and get a Mountain Bandit, you are good, ladies and gentlemen. You are good. Side note here, what red Mountain Bandits do we have? Not very many as it stands at the moment. We got the curly Dadan I just mentioned. That's a pretty good one. We do have a Dagura here from OP-02 that you can rest it and play a red character other than Dagura with a cost of 1 from your hand, which actually kind of works. Or we got Magura, which on play gives one of your red characters with a cost of 1 3,000 power during this turn. Or maybe you combine them into Dogura and Magura from OP-07 that on play gives one of your red characters with a cost of 1 double attack during this turn. You see where we're going with this? Basically, we've got ways to add power to 1 cost, search out 1 cost, etc. And they tend to be Mountain Bandits. So I'm just saying, play around with those. That is probably going to be where you're playing with your Mountain Bandits. And then go Rush. Job's a good un. What's the other card that's been revealed? Well, I already told you it was Makino. 1 cost, 0 power, counter plus 1,000. It is Fuchsia Village here. It's not Mountain Bandit, because Makino is not a Mountain Bandit. And we got counter plus 2,000, but it is another 1 cost, so it kind of fits with everything we've just been talking about. And activate main, you may rest this character, and one of your Monkey D. Luffy this turn gains 2,000 power. Very important to note, it is specifically your Monkey D. Luffy that gets bumped here. It does not specify leader or character or anything along those lines. It is any Monkey D. Luffy. Now, this one actually will fit very nicely with what I was just talking about with a new Luffy leader, because, of course, the new Luffy leader, I mean, you got 5k like all of them. This will put you up to 7k on your turn. And bearing in mind the whole way Luffy works, you're going to have 1 Don on there. So you're going to be attacking with Luffy as an 8k. You are going to be using Luffy's skill on your opponent's turn to buff Luffy up on your opponent's turn. But there's no reason you can't also be doing a nice bit of bumping on your turn here. And that's kind of what we're relying on. Bump it up, have some fun, job's a good un. That's what Makino's doing here. It doesn't have to be this. It can be any Luffy. Now, obviously, we're looking at this and going, well, it works very nicely with the leader, and it does. Let's be perfectly clear. But we've got other red Luffy, even if we don't start thinking about, dual color, we've got other red Luffy around right now that we might be wanting to play with. How about the one from Starter Deck 1 that's got Rush and Don X2? Your opponent can't activate blocker. Well, the Don X2 puts it up to an 8k, and then Makino goes and puts it up to a 10k, and you've got Rush and your opponent can't activate blocker on your 10k. And there's going to be other red Luffy in the future, let's be perfectly clear. I'm just saying this is an example of a red Luffy that you can use. We do also have the red Luffy that came around in Starter Deck 10, but then it's also fair to point out that one's already starting with 11k. I'm not saying don't boost it up. I am saying I'm not convinced that's like the number 1 target to boost up right away. Or, let's stick with red Starter Deck Luffy. How about the one from Starter Deck 21? It's got Rush. When attacking, you give a rested Don to your leader or one of your characters, i.e., you give the rested Don to Luffy to activate the Luffy leader skill. Look how that worked out. And then you're an 8k Luffy with Rush, and you're putting a Don in your leader to activate the Luffy skill. That could work quite nicely as well. This seems pretty cool. Now, the good news is, this is an every turn skill. It is just activate main, rest this character, bump your Luffy by 2k, but also you've got no power and you have to rest to use a skill. If you're actually getting value out of this, your opponent is gonna target this down. There is no way your opponent's gonna watch you boosting your Luffy up turn after turn and not take out the rested 0 power character. It's going to be very easy to take that one out. You have been warned. And actually, just before we finish here, let's go back to Curly Dadan just for a moment. I didn't mention Rayleigh last time, and I'm starting to think there's going to be a bunch of people down in the comments being like, Wassy, you forgot about Rayleigh. So maybe we should mention Rayleigh just nice and simple. Rayleigh is, of course, a red leader, like Curly Dadan is red. And you're not allowed to play 5 cost or higher, but that's not a problem. And we've got an activate main once per turn, show 2 red events from your hand, and then if there's a character of an original cost of 4,000 or less, you can boost it by 2k. So there is essentially an argument here to use Rayleigh with Dadan to boost it up. Not sure it's going to work perfectly because I think Rayleigh's already got other ways to go, but I didn't want people to think I'd forgotten about Rayleigh, so there we go. Weak red character needs boosting. Yes, it would work with Rayleigh. I prefer it with Sanji, but then I usually prefer stuff with Sanji, the red leader from Premium Booster 01, and I'm not always right. I don't know. I've told you about the new card, so now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about all of this in the comment section. Get us! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy. That's where we talk about One Piece and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, join a Discord, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wassy Plays.